Hi. So we have talked about what is an argument and what is the structure of an argument. Now let me talk about further in depth about how do you actually analyze an argument. One, an argument ends up making a claim. We end up making certain claims during an argument. We use evidence to make those claims. Now, is it true that all the claims that are based on evidence will be true? They are correct? Not necessarily. We can challenge the claims. How can we challenge the claims? What kind of things can be challenged within an argument? Let us discuss that. So, first we can challenge the assumptions. Assumptions on the basis of which this argument is built. Let's see, or let's take an example where economic growth, this is a very common thing, that economic growth represented in GDP growth percentage is the only considered as the legitimate parameter that needs to be chased by a democratic government across the world. Across the world, like GDP growth rate is an important indicator. Now, is it the only indicator that matters? That assumption can be challenged. And that has been challenged with more holistic indicators, which include the human development index, which goes much beyond the GDP growth rates, right? So the assumption behind the argument can be challenged. We can challenge the evidence on the basis of which argument has been made. In terms of source, we can look at the reliability of the source. Say the gyan that you get over Facebook or WhatsApp, is that true? If you are to believe a news article, will you believe Z News or will you believe, say, the Hindu NDTV more than Z News? We can also look at, say sources in terms of who is making this claim. Say in a study done by, let's take an example, in a study done by Reliance or Airtel, no link was found between mobile tower radiation and cancer. Now, will you believe that? Or will you believe that without questioning, without looking closely at the evidence? Same thing like Adani. Adani has a thermal power plant in Punjab, and Adani's study claimed that no link was found between cancer cases in Bathinda, which is in Punjab, where the power plant is located, and the company's thermal power plant. Or can I trust the government claim that X% of the population is getting jobs when we see unemployment all around us? Can I trust that claim? An Indian Statistical Institute or Central Statistical Organization says that there is no reliable way to actually calculate unemployment rate. And the government is making the claim that the unemployment rate is at historic low of say 4% or so. While I see job losses all around me, I see factories closing, I see industrial areas struggling. How do I believe that claim? So all that evidence can be challenged. The strength of the evidence can be challenged. Say exaggeration. 95% of the people supported demonetization in a survey done by Prime Minister's office. Now, is that an exaggeration? I mean, probably there are people supporting it. And could it be like people were supporting it when it was announced, but then 1 month down the line, they see the reality, and then can that claim, that strong claim that oh, the day demonetization was announced, 95% of the people supported it, does that claim stand any water? In terms of reasoning, there are a lot of wrong ways to reason. That's the beauty of it. You can reason and still be wrong. These are called fallacies. We're not covering that in this video or in this course. Check it out on the web. It is an interesting topic, and it will help you sharpen your logical reasoning and argumentation skills. Once you see that there are certain kinds of fallacies in arguments, you can identify them and you can use them to either counter the claims or to make your own claims to avoid these fallacies in your own arguments. In terms of claims, we can counter or challenge the inferences that have been drawn. We can counter the generalizability of the inferences. Say all exit polls. We can see that how reliable exit polls are. They are making certain claims. This party will get that many seats. But is it actually star marked and said that, okay, it is with just 3,000 people, we have taken a sample while the population of India was who have voted is say 80 crore plus. Can we do that? Or if something has worked, say generalizability of claim, a good example would be something has worked for us in the Doon school, which is a high-end residential school, or something has worked in IB school or Dhirubhai Ambani school. Will the same thing work in terms of learning outcomes for children in a government school, which has very different profile of children that comes with a very different profile of teachers that teach there, the resources that are there, the constraints that these teachers face. Will it work? No, not necessarily. Or in fact, we can be very sure it will not work. And hence, are your claims generalizable? Now, there is evidence on the basis of which we make certain claims through reasoning, but we what do? Someone has made a claim, right? Someone has made an argument. What are your options? You can either accept the claim if you are satisfied, or you can provide a rebuttal and make a counter claim. And or I will say you can provide a rebuttal that okay, you do not agree with this. This is why you do not agree with this, but you may not have a counter claim to make because you do not understand the thing really well, and you will say that okay, right now your evidence does not lead to this inference. That's a wrong claim you're making. But what is the reality? Even I don't know right now. So rebuttal is usually based on questioning the veracity of the evidence, challenging the bridge between the evidence and the claim, poking holes into the claim itself, or challenging the claim by we can challenge the claim by making a counter claim. And once we make a counter claim, which basically means we are saying that the original claim stands invalidated. And how do you make a counterclaim? You present an alternative evidence. Evidence is there. You present an alternative evidence which has not been presented already. Or you can use the same evidence. Now, from evidence to claim, there is some reasoning. You use the same evidence, but use a different reasoning, different bridge to reach a different claim. Is that possible? That is definitely possible. Happens all the time in research, academic research, where people are using the same data set to reach different claims because they are making probably different assumptions or using, say, someone looking at it from psychological perspective, from sociological perspective, there are different explanations of the same phenomenon. Now, how do you attack arguments? You can attack arguments by either showing that the premise on which it is based is unacceptable, or you can show the consequences, show the consequence relation to be weak by way of logic. Through logic, you can say that the claim that you are making is actually a weak claim or a false claim. Or you can say that the premise on which the claim is or the argument is standing, that premise itself is unacceptable. Now, how do you look closely at the argument while you are arguing? How do you actually consider what is being said and when to believe something or not believe something? Always ask why someone wants you to believe something. What is the agenda behind the person? And agenda needs to be separated from the quality of argument. Maybe there is a particular agenda, but that despite the agenda or in absence of agenda, in presence of agenda, the argument is very strong, very rational, etc. Right? Why someone wants you to believe something? If someone has a agenda, then you would look for evidence that is missing. You would probably look for evidence that that the person has not presented, but maybe may lead to a different claim itself, different inference itself. Did I take notes as I thought about the potential problems with what was being said? So notes means mentally, are you noting it down? What are the potential problems with the argument that is being made? Did I evaluate what was being said? Are you accepting it just because, say, it's a famous academician or a famous researcher or a person who is considered as an expert in the domain? Are you believing this person, or are you actually evaluating the argument on the basis of which it is being said? If you believe that experts say all things right, then there should be no academic rivalries. There should be people who have been Nobel laureates. There should be no counter to their say that articles that they write, but it is very common to see rebuttals or critique of whatever these people, these famous experts are writing, either in mainstream media or especially in academic journals. Did I form my own conclusion about the topic based on the evidence? Are you believing what others are saying, or are you applying your own brain to analyze the evidence, the link between the evidence, to put it in certain brackets and say that, okay, from on the basis of this evidence, I can reach this claim, but these are the boundary conditions. These are the things that the other person is claiming, but there are limitations to that. Are you making those kind of things? So by asking the right questions, you will usually discover that there are a number of possible weaknesses in the arguments of the communicator. Okay, one, we need to consider certain things. We need to consider the worldview of the person, the lens through which a person sees the world. And the lenses can differ depending on their philosophy of life or depending on their expertise, experience, etc., etc. Now, if it's like saying that if you give a nail to a hammer, it will always beat it because that's how it sees the world. So Amartya Sen versus Jagdish Bhagwati are these are two famous economists. They have very different view of how human development should be seen. Amartya Sen, who made famous the Human Development Index, so he sees this multi-dimensional index of human development versus Jagdish Bhagwati, who believes in trickle-down theory and says that GDP growth, that is the only thing that government should target, and through trickle-down effect, all people at the bottom of the pyramid will actually become better off as GDP grows. Amartya Sen does not agree and provides a much more holistic or multidimensional index of human development. Or when we are looking at, say, land acquisition in tribal areas, the governments or corporates will say that more mining means more development in terms of more economic output, more jobs, etc. While the people, the tribal people whose lands are proposed, the government proposes to acquire those lands and mine them. And this, for these tribal people, more mining means more displacement, more exploitation, more pollution, more health hazard. All their lives will be destroyed. So whose side are you looking at it from? And who is right, who is wrong? All that needs to be considered. Next, we also need to look closely at the credibility of the evidence. Anything that you receive on Facebook or WhatsApp or forward is not to be trusted blindly. Go check the sources. Go check the original sources which make these claims. और we see in news media, विश्वसनीय सूत्रों ने हमें बताया है, reliable trusted sources have told us. Now, is that the right thing that we can trust? A good newspaper will actually bet it can be, and oftentimes they are true, but not necessary. You need to check credible sources through websites like Port News or FactChecker.in, SM Hoaxslayer, or PolitiFact. There are these websites which check the facts of widely circulated messages or news articles. In terms of reasoning can be based on logic, which is an ideal kind of reasoning. In Greek Socratic tradition, be based on the basis of logic. Yet, you can have faith-based reasoning where, in terms of belief, in Hinduism, it would be said that Manusmriti, people who believe in Manusmriti will say Manusmriti has said this, or say in terms of Islam, Quran has said this. Now, the faith-based reasoning goes like this: that all that is true has been written in these sacred texts. So I cannot accept anything other than what has been written there. Or let me take another faith-based reasoning that last night God came into my dreams and asked me to slap you. Now is that, and in the morning I woke up, I came to the office and slapped you, bang, and I gave this reason. Will you trust that? Will you believe that? Oftentimes, we do not have solutions to problems. At times, what we are doing is we are arguing about issues where reasoning is not able to solve the problems. These are called ethical dilemmas. Look at the trolley problem. On YouTube, you will be able to see several videos and why it is a complex phenomenon. So reasoning is not always able to help you reach a solution, especially when it is an ethical dilemma. Now, what are the key takeaways of these two videos? One, do not accept evidence or claim on face value ever. Always question the claims, always question the evidence and the link between them. Whenever you are making a claim, do not make general statements, do not make huge claims, very strong claims. Qualify your claims that it is possible or it is feasible only under this and this circumstance. Avoid binaries, accept that there are gray areas. It is either my way or the highway. There could be multiple positions that may exist. Acknowledge that your argument may be weak, or you may not have the complete data or information to make a good claim. Acknowledge weak points in arguments and acknowledge that others can make strong arguments. And it is not necessary that you have to accept everything in toto. If someone is making 13 claims, you could accept 3 as really strong claims, 2 as reasonably strong, and rest all as weak claims, or actually they can easily be falsified. Be flexible. If new evidence, if you are a critical thinker, if you have taken certain position, if new evidence pops up and it is counter to it challenges your existing position on the issue, be ready to change your position. Finally, listen, not to reply, but to understand. That's how you can be a good arguer and you can be engaged in very healthy debates and discussions. Thank you.